test with a neck problem and will be replaced by Luke Abraham. Kickoffs at 7:45. There's full commentary online at bbc.co.uk/Manchester. In Rugby League, Wigan have added Liam Colburn and Darryl Golding to the squad for tonight's playoff match at Headingley against Leeds. St Helens await the winners. There's full commentary in the all-new Manchester Sports from 7. UEFA are today expected to confirm plans to expand the European Championships from 16 to 24 teams. That's in time for the tournament in 2016. Meanwhile, the UEFA Cup will be known as the UEFA Europa League from next season. They say that better reflects the nature of the competition. And West Ham could face legal action over the Carlos Tevez affair from players relegated with Sheffield United.
BBC Radio Manchester, satellite weather with Diane Oxbury.
The early mist and fog has cleared now, so a nice, bright and sunny morning. It'll stay that way, dry and warm with some light winds, highs of 18 Celsius.
I told her to sort that accent out, talking Geordie on the wireless. Who does she think she is?
Those tunnels belong to Beswick.
Allan Beswick. BBC Radio Manchester.
Aye, all right. Smart. Hey, grand, isn't it? 0161 228 2255. That's the number. If you want to have a bash, you're more than welcome. All you've got to do is ring in, and you can talk about anything. I'm not fussed. I have no shame, and even less pride. Mind you, if you've no pride, you're not going to have any shame, are you? Because they're kind of either side of the coin. No idea what I'm on about, don't worry. No, well, I'm paid to talk. I'm not paid to talk sense, otherwise I'd never get a bean. We made question time last night, apparently. Did anyone see it? I didn't. I were busy. On the telly. Yeah. Our scoop with Ruth Kelly on the telly. I don't know what they said. I hope they said I was handsome. I said I hope. I didn't say I think they will. Anyway, there you are. So, from little acorns, giant oak trees grow. Yeah. Right. Oh, yeah, the email address is radiomanchester@bbc.co.uk. And the text number is 077... I still have to read this. How long have we been doing this? I still have to read it. 07786 206 951. Well, I give you that. People say, why do you keep giving the phone number out? Well, it's so that you don't do silent calls to somebody else. As if you were like Barclays Bank or something. They're a bunch of gangsters, aren't they? Well, they are in that. In that, I'm sure they're perfectly honourable in every other respect. But they've just been fined the maximum 50,000 quid. This is Barclays Bank. Well, no, it's not actually. It's Barclay Card. But they're like Barclays Bank with bits of plastic, aren't they? Ofcom, for it is them, today fined Barclaycard 50,000 quid for breaching rules on silent and abandoned calls, the regulator announced. The fine, the maximum Ofcom is allowed to impose, follows an investigation between October 2006 and May 2007, which found that Barclaycard had made an extremely high number of silent calls. The investigation also found that some of Barclaycard's call centres had no procedures to prevent people receiving repeated abandoned calls over a short period of time. These are the calls that they employ. These are my figures, not theirs. They employ 100 people, and they have a machine that rings 1,000. And then the ones that get answered, the person steps in. But what happens sometimes is, out of those 1,000 automatic calls, if 101 answer, one of them gets nobody because the 100 people are on the phone. Do you follow it? And they've done more than most and ended up getting fined 50,000 quid. And reading between the lines, I think Ofcom would have fined them a lot more than that had they been able to, but they're not able to because that's the maximum fine, 50,000 quid, which from the point of view of Barclaycard is absolutely nothing. They lose that in petty cash, or indeed gain that in petty cash calculations every day. They don't bother over 50,000 quid. It's not worth the energy of finding it. Anyway, there you are. I just thought you'd like to know. And when you get a phone call tonight and you answer the phone and there isn't a person on the other end, that's because you've been phoned, apparently, by a complete and utter banker. Simon said via email, I offer you this quotation for consideration. Today, America would be outraged if United Nations troops entered Los Angeles to restore order. Tomorrow, they'll be grateful. This is especially true if they were told that there were an outside threat from beyond, whether real or promulgated, that threatened our very existence. It is then that all peoples of the world will plead to deliver them from this evil. The one thing every man fears is the unknown. When presented with this scenario, individual rights will be willingly relinquished for the guarantee of their well-being granted to them by the world government. That, according to Simon, is a quotation from Dr. Henry Kissinger at a conference in 1991. I don't know why he sent it to me, except perhaps we can discourse. It's a bit long, isn't it? But Kissinger, you wouldn't want to spend your life quoting Kissinger. And then I had this thought as well, David. He says, the Swedish woman who was hit by a lorry was sentenced to 1 day in jail. I wonder if it was suspended for 6 months. I thought, that'll teach her, he thought. 1 day? What's the point of sending somebody to jail for a day? By the time they've had the clothes inspected and the finger up the bum and all that caper that they have to do to make sure you're not smuggling contraband, it's time to go home. There you are, she was sent into jail for a day. As I say, it might be on the grounds that she'd probably suffered enough by being hit by a lorry. Very strange case, is that? It's one of those that you hear and you think, I'd like to know more. I really would like to know more. I'd like to know all the background to it. It's a little bizarre. But there you are. That's, you know, the bizarre is the ordinary round here. Oh, God, yes. The absolute ordinary. We don't care round here. We have all sorts of balmy stuff. But a traffic policeman whose car collided with a pensioner's vehicle, killing him, can remember little of the high-speed crash. This was down south somewhere, I think, if I remember correctly. Yeah, he can't remember it. Yeah, I'm looking at it. Oh, no, it wasn't. It was Liverpool. Liverpool, that's not down south, is it? It's as foreign, but it's not down south. Yeah, can't remember a thing. Funny that, isn't it? Funny. Can't remember a thing. Well, that's fair. You have a crash, you forget everything.
Andy Crane, live at the Lowry.
This Labour Party conference, is it of any interest to you, or is it just a nuisance that means you can't get through town because of all the road closures?
Pretty much, yeah, it's a bit of a nuisance.
I mean, there's police everywhere. If you live on the outskirts of Manchester and your house is getting robbed, I'm sure the response time has probably gone up.
Music, politics and comedy.
My eldest daughter's 20. She doesn't understand anything about politics. It's like the X-Factor generation. If we took a turn voting in this country to the red button and then Mr Brown, he'd have to do a conjuring trick or something and people go, oh, I really like him, he's
I
good.
Completely agree. And this
Some would say he already has to do conjuring tricks.
Well, exactly, yeah.
Your Sunday lunchtime mix, live at the Lowry with Andy Crane.
That's a broad brief you have there.
Sunday from noon.
BBC Radio Manchester.
You see, I keep seeing stories that make me want to know more. Listen to this. This is a story that's just arrived on me. You know me computerised information, we'll tell you what's going on thingamajig. Yeah. Listen to this for a story. A hunt monitor fell into a ditch 3 times after a confrontation with a mounted huntsman on a country road. What does that mean, he fell into a ditch? What are they implying, that he was knocked in by the bloke on the horse? Or are they saying, well, his legs were a bit tired and he just kept falling over? He's got falling over disease. It's weird. Absolutely weird. But then somebody pleaded guilty to assaulting her. But he fell into a ditch. What does that mean? Hunt monitor fell into ditch after confrontation. It's absolutely meaningless, isn't it? It's balmy. Never mind, let's have a look at the papers. Now better to do that. I'm going to work through a couple of them today. Front page of the Daily Express. You are better off on benefit, apparently. Millions of benefit claimants are better off living on handouts than getting a job. A government report confirmed yesterday. Some if they got a job, could lose as much as £1.20 in benefits for every pound they earn. Extraordinary. What do you think of that? 0161 228 2255. It's 12:15. John in Goulburn. Hiya.
Hi, Alan.
What have you got?
I want to talk about rugby union, Alan, the subject that Peter Whelan spoke about yesterday.
All right.
Just to tell you a little bit about myself, I've been involved in rugby league for 47 years as a schoolboy, amateur, professional, amateur coach, professional coach, and best of all, full-time professional rugby league development manager. That was until 9 years ago when I had an accident and broke my neck in 2 places. However, I'm alive and enjoying life. So earlier this year, after giving a speech at the launch of Wayne English's testimonial year, as a player I signed for Swinton 10 years ago, I was asked by Peter Whelan, the videographer, to would I like to commentate on the matchday videos, which I did and I thoroughly enjoyed. Peter was also asked to go along to Sedgley Park Rugby Union Club and...
yeah, we got that yesterday. We don't have a lot of time for the full history of it.
Well, I want to give you some facts, Peter, right? I'm currently conducting a survey of the North West Rugby Union clubs, and I've got some interesting facts for you here, right? If we look at North West Counties Open Age Amateur Rugby League, there are 80 teams, and there are 13 National League sides, giving a total of 93 teams in the North West, with an average of 25 players per team.
All right, well, listen, I'm not, and I suspect people at home aren't taking notes.
Right.
So there's an awful lot of rugby union played in the North West. I know that. Well, you're going to get to a point eventually, aren't you?
Yeah, well, there are 5 times as many players playing rugby unions as there are rugby league.
Okay,
in the North West.
like I said, you're going to get to a point in a minute, aren't you?
Yeah, no,
okay.
the point is that I feel that there is a need for a programme on rugby union, whether it be a midweek programme.
Well, you're probably talking to the wrong bloke, aren't you?
Yeah, I just want to endorse what Peter said yesterday.
Well, you've done it, but frankly, in the end, there is an interest in rugby union, without a doubt. But as I said yesterday, and I too played rugby union.
Yep.
But the interest is in that people play it. There isn't much interest in people watching it or hearing about it.
I think you're wrong there.
Well, okay. I used to play at Ormskirk. Now times may have changed, but I used to play at Ormskirk, and frankly, the number of people watching us was fewer than the number of people playing, if you discounted those that were our relatives.
Yeah.
Is that still the case?
In a big
it's a simple question. You've done in the big majority of cases, people turn out. I mean, Ormskirk Rugby Club these days, I believe, puts out 6 teams.
Yeah.
If you just count the players, the straightforward players, that's 90 people.
Yeah.
I bet they don't have 90 people watching that aren't connected to any of the players.
No, but even
so there is no spectator interest in the sport. There's interest in doing it, but there's no spectator interest.
Well, I would disagree with you.
Well, that's where we'll part company then, isn't it? You disagree, but the reality is that there isn't a hue and cry of people saying, why can't I find out about my local rugby union club? What there is people saying, who cares about Sedgley? Who cares about Ormskirk? Frankly, it doesn't even make the rugby union pages.
I think it does. I think if you went on the internet, you'd be very surprised.
No, I said pages. You don't have pages on the internet.
Yeah, well,
the internet is full of all sorts of crap because it's endless. You can put as much as you want and as little as you want on the internet. But in the broadcast medium, we have to, because of the nature of what we do, we have to preach sometimes to the majority and large minorities. What we can't afford the time to do is to preach to or broadcast for tiny minorities. Now, if I sat here and read out the rugby union scores, nobody would hear the last one because they'll have all turned off.
Yeah.
Well, we give programmes to people who want to listen to them. We don't say, look, there are loads of people doing this. I suspect there are as many people doing carpentry, but we haven't got a programme on that either. I suspect there are as many people doing all sorts of things that we haven't got programmes on. Because although it's great fun to do, and lots of people do it, it has absolutely no interest for anybody else.
Well, I would disagree with you.
I know you would, but the evidence is, look at the touchline and see who you have stood there or sat there watching the game who isn't connected to one of the players.
No, I wouldn't entirely go with that.
Would you not?
No, I wouldn't.
So you're telling what's the biggest crowd? What's the biggest crowd at a local level rugby union match, do you think?
I would think you get a couple of hundred people.
A couple of hundred people.
Yeah.
Which one of the 6 teams of Ormskirk, for example?
Well,
now, bear in mind, I'm a fan of Ormskirk, and,
yeah, well, that's good.
and occasionally even go back and have a look. It's a long way for me to drive just to watch. But frankly, I'm sorry. Sale, one professional level rugby club in our patch, can sometimes very nearly fill the ground.
That's right.
In other words, they can't even fill the ground for one game.
And if we look back 10 years ago, they couldn't even get 1,000 people onto it.
Well, John, what I'll say to you is when they finally get an audience, we'll broadcast to them. Till then, we probably won't bother.
Right, well, thanks for the time.
It's my pleasure,
I will, when I've conducted my survey, submit the details to the BBC.
OK, you do that. You'll always make the case. Always make the case.
I will do.
Good on you, mate.
Thanks for the airtime.
Have a good one. 0161 228 2255. Simple question. Do you want local rugby union on the sports programme? Do you not? OK. It's just gone 12 on BBC Radio Manchester. Anna Dawson's got the headlines.
Police are describing a gang who shot at officers as they chased a stolen car in Salford last night as dangerous and a risk to the public. A man's been arrested on suspicion of attempted murder. A Stockport lorry driver's been describing how he helped police when 2 women repeatedly ran into speeding traffic on the M6. The twin sisters from Sweden were spotted walking along the central reservation of the motorway near Stoke. And a senior public health chief urging parents at a school in Bury to encourage their daughters to have a cervical cancer vaccine. Earlier this week, St Monica's High said it was banning girls from having the vaccination on school premises. Manchester's weather fine and dry today, highs of 18 Celsius.
BBC Radio Manchester, 2020 traffic.
If you're travelling on the M62 Manchester bound, watch out, traffic's still slow because of an earlier overturned caravan between 22 Rushworth Mall and 21 Mill Row. All lanes have been reopened to traffic, but as I say, there's still a backlog of traffic in the area. It's also looking quite heavy on camera on the M6 southbound between 19 Knutsford and junction 17 at Sandbach. And don't forget that tram stations on the Metrolink line at Manchester Piccadilly and Piccadilly Gardens will be closed as of tomorrow for the next 8 weeks, owing to engineering works due to take place on the tracks. And again, another advance warning: if you're using Arriva Trains well services at all this weekend between Chester and Manchester Piccadilly and between Earlstown and Warrington Bank Quay, be aware that buses are replacing trains all weekend due to engineering works. Don't forget, if you can update me further, call in on 0161 244 4951. I'm Cara Banks.
Decongesting Manchester, one car at a time. 2020 traffic.
BBC Radio Manchester.
Teddy Mostyn says, I hope they force her to pay up for the chaos caused on her medical treatment. This was an entirely self-inflicted, therefore she should have to cough up. It's a shame she didn't get her legs smashed. That's Ted, in his sympathetic way, for the girl, the Swedish girl who was hit by the lorry. I think he summarises, serves the Swedish cow right. I think his summary of his point of view. Will in Winsford. Hey, Will.
Hey, pal, you all right?
I'm not bad, mate.
Can't stick me 3 anything about these blooming banks and all this credit squeeze.
Please do, yes.
Well, it's a bit like someone drinking in a pub and running a slate up, isn't it? And when they can't pay the bill, all the other drinkers have got to pay their bill for them.
Yeah, I think that's a fairly good analogy. Yeah.
I'm not being funny, but they've just they're taking the mickey, really, and I think what we've done in this country, we've given everything away. We've let everybody just run wild with what they want to do. It's the same with the food situation, which I think is the next crisis, because we've let everybody play away from home, if you excuse the expression, in so much that we've allowed all the imports of cheap food to come in, and we've allowed the decline in our own food producing ability. And I see with all the fuel problems and so on, and being run by these oil rich companies, that one day we're going to find ourselves literally hunting for food because there won't be any.
Well, the idea of all these foreign firms and the like, you're possibly correct in one respect, but the first crisis that is about to hit us, if you're to believe today's newspapers, particularly the front page of the Daily Mail, an awful lot of our electricity-producing companies and gas-producing companies are now foreign-owned, and only yesterday the government allowed our nuclear power industry, or part of it, to be sold off. But you see, I have a reverse take on the Daily Mail. The Daily Mail think that the French company will turn our power off, but I don't think they will. And I've got a reason for it. The reason they'll turn off the French before they turn ours off is because we pay a lot more for it.
Exactly.
So they'll say, well, them French, they're not paying as much, and it'll be an auction in the end, a Dutch auction, if you will, as to who'll pay the most.
But the French produce more. They produce food, and they have to buy it locally. They keep it in-house. What we do, because we're across the sea, we've got to fly everything in, and when the planes start to slow down and so on, I think we'll be in a real struggle for food, you know.
Well, we might, but how would we prevent that? Because the one thing that we know, and people vote with their feet and their wallet, the one thing we know is people in this country don't care where it comes from, providing it's cheap.
Well, there's the rubbish here, because it's not going to be cheap, is it?
Well, the attitude of those going shopping is, I'll buy the cheapest today, and I'll buy the cheapest tomorrow, even if tomorrow it's a lot dearer. We know that. That's how they do it.
Yes, I agree with you. But I think, as you know, the flight companies, the holiday companies have gone bust and so on. There's a lot going on, I think, an undercurrent of things, where I believe that the food just won't get here at any price. And I think if we could manage and support our farmers more vigorously and have a food-producing nation, we'd be less reliant, because once it all runs out, we've made ourselves reliant on everybody else, haven't we, really?
Yeah, but I don't know what the alternative is. I don't know how we say to the public at large, well, OK, you've got these, I don't know. Well, first of all, half the things we want to eat, we can't grow here.
Yeah.
Bananas, we can't grow bananas. Oranges, we can't grow oranges. Grapes, we can grow a few, but not many, and they're not edible. They're all right for wine, but they're not edible. So the kind of things we want to eat, we can't grow here.
Yeah, looking back to your conversation a couple of weeks ago about concepts and about people's views conceptually and how they see things, we see food as being things that are imported. But if we were really hungry, we'd eat what we can produce ourselves.
Well, yes, but are you really suggesting that we'll go back to the stage where we're living as a nation hand to mouth?
I do, and we'll be living in caves where we're going on.
Well, at least we won't need a mortgage for those. Have a good day, Will.
Can I be very, very, very cheeky?
Yeah.
Can I promote a charity night?
Go on.
We're raising money for a children's toy library for Velroad Disability Services, and it's a function at Owlery Wood Club in Weaverham, if anybody knows it.
All right.
In October.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Cheers. 0161228 2255. Anish in Bolton. Hi.
Hi, Alan. You all right?
Not bad.
I've come on to ask you, and to discuss a news item that I saw on a news channel during breakfast this morning, which I'm fairly concerned about, but I'd like to know how concerned the general public should be. It's about the not having enough electricity to go around this winter time, and that parts of the country could experience blackouts, as this news channel reported.
Well, how concerned are you?
Fairly concerned. But how concerned should the general public be about this?
It's hard to tell, isn't it? Because we don't know who to believe. I was just looking at it then. The argument seems to be that the warning following the release of grim industry figures yesterday will dredge up memories of the last electricity crisis in 1974, according to the Daily Mail. The loss of only one of our 38 biggest power stations at times of high demand could lead to breaks in supply. What they're suggesting is that we've got enough production ability to get us through the winter. But if one of our major power station breaks down, then we've got problems.
All right.
Now, that may or may not be true. I have absolutely no idea. But let us look at that and say, well, hang on a minute, if one of our major power stations breaks down, it's going to take a 1/38th off the peak, because they're not all working all the time. They're not all pushing electricity into the system all the time. We have to, I mean, the way electricity works is you produce more than you need because you can't get it on demand. So it would mean that when they are flat out, now that's going to be the peak hours, isn't it? So when they are flat out, if one of them broke down, we would lose a 1/38th of our energy supply, if you like. So a 1/38th of the population could possibly lose supply. Well, I don't know how many a 1/38th is. It's quite a lot of people, I suspect. But equally, what are the chances of it breaking down? What are the chances of it breaking down at peak time? And in the non-peak time, the electricity supply will be fabulous. So I don't know how big a problem it is.
Because they also mentioned that some of the systems of National Grid are kind of out of date as well. And
well, they're certainly very old, yes.
So that was my question to you, Alan.
Well, I mean, according to this report, as quoted by the Daily Mail, we should be very worried. This is reaching national crisis proportions, but the response is piecemeal and inadequate. That's according to an industry watchdog. And you probably find out that what's going on here is the people who make the money from building power stations and improving or providing the grid are looking for some more work. And so they do a bit of scaremongering. There again, it might simply be that we run out of electricity. But of course, what this doesn't take account of is the fact that should we be low on energy supply, should we need more, we have an arrangement with the French, primarily, but with other continental countries as well, but primarily with the French, that we will take their excess energy.
Right.
And their peak times are more or less the same as ours, so...
Right,
So I don't know that it's a major worry. I suppose it's something that needs to be thought of.
As long as it doesn't happen on Christmas Day.
Christmas Day would be brilliant, because Christmas Day is actually a day of low energy requirements, believe it or not. Because, well, none of the factories are working. Factories aren't working, large industry, the airports are virtually closed, the trains aren't running, and yes, there is a massive demand for a cup of tea as soon as Lizzie Queen shuts up. And yes, there are people cooking the Christmas dinner, but I'm led to believe that the power demands of that are less than the power demands of a normal working day. Because industries are out the equation, as it were. We'll see.
Thanks very much, Alan.
All right, mate. Good on you. Anish is a bit worried about electricity supplies. I suspect what we need to do is all get a pile of shillings in. That's what we need to do. Alan, I watched Motorway Cops, and besides the incidents that took place, and he's talking about the two Swedish sisters who played dodgems, not awfully successfully, but played dodgems on the motorway. I watched the Motorway Cops, and besides the incidents that took place, what it confirmed to me was what a waste of time police women are. He had one sprawling on her back like an upturned beetle, shouting in panic for her male colleagues because she couldn't handle the girl who was half her size. Then there was another who was that fat she could hardly fit behind the steering wheel. No wonder fit young thugs are having a field day if this is the best we can send after them. Once they're in the police force, is there no fitness programme they must adhere to for enhancing their ability to fight crime? Well, given that most of your job as a copper is filling in forms, you don't actually need to be that fit, do you? 0161 228 2255. Fat coppers getting in the way, or not getting in the way when they should. David says, there's always a David. There's always a David. David said in Sale, I started work as an apprentice electrician in 1978, aged 16. My early influences on the subject of politics came from listening to the working men that I shared various building sites and site huts with. At the time, the mood was one of disgust at the state of the country, with talk of it being bankrupt. There were stories of factory workers sleeping through their night shifts and union pickets outside hospitals deciding who got in and who didn't. I remember men talking with anger about how the old rates system had still not been replaced in spite of its unpopularity. Industry was, by then, trying to compete with foreign competitors whose workers worked longer hours for a fraction of the wages that were demanded here. Because of these things, I would have voted for Mrs. Thatcher in 1979 had I not been 10 months too young. Through the 80s, I heard lots of people express horror at the idea of ever returning to a Labour government. As we got into the 90s, and having witnessed some of the less palatable things that the Tories did, attitudes began to change, and the bad things from pre-1979 were largely forgotten. Consequently, in 1997, people voted in Labour in a similar enthusiastic way to that which had happened to the Tories in '79. If memory serves me correctly, the post-Thatcher Tory government led by John Major had, by the end, finally got unemployment down and still falling, and similarly with inflation. Gordon Brown inherited this situation and had an easy ride as Chancellor for 10 years. I regularly hear on your programme people spitting fire about Mrs. Thatcher, but I've not heard one of them suggest how we could have moved as a nation from where we were in 1979 to being the fourth or fifth richest country in the mid-90s. To the present, whilst keeping those industries that clearly couldn't compete with foreign counterparts. It seems to me that we have no choice but to go through a massive change of some sort. I think that whichever party we have in power, they all start off with genuine intentions but lose the plot sometime later. All I will say to you about Margaret Thatcher's wonderful time and how well she did and how she changed the face of Britain is, I've just had a conversation about running out of electricity during the course of the coming winter. Well, that's fine, but of course we live in a nation that is built on coal. Scratch the surface almost anywhere in this country of ours and you will find coal. And yet, there are stories of us running out of electricity. How extraordinary. How absolutely extraordinary. Thatcher took on the coal industry and stuffed it. She beat it hands down. So now we buy it from abroad. Thatcher took on the power workers and she beat them hands down. And now we buy electricity from abroad. Thatcher handed over the power industry to people who were interested in profit, not the provision of service. And they have made profit. They have made massive profits. Absolutely scandalously high profits. And has any of that profit gone into the development of new power stations to make sure that we have power supply through the winter? Well, you must come up with the answer for yourself. So David, Thatcher, I'm sure, did some good things. Unfortunately, there's little evidence around that any of them were anything other than spite. 0161 228 2255, Radio Manchester at bbc.co.uk, and of course you can text, usual number 07786 206 951 if you fancy. We don't care, you can talk about anything. Paul McCartney, you can talk about him if you like. Apparently he's been to Israel, and it says in the paper he went despite death threats. Well, that's fine. Good on him, I say. Good on him. But 5,000 security guards, dear God, that seems extravagant in the doesn't it, though? 5,000? Crying out loud. Cost of that. I hope he met the cost of that, I really do. But there you are. And apparently Her Majesty the Queen can't make ends meet. Poor old thing. The Queen is to make a fresh plea for more money from the cash-strapped taxpayer. That's you and me, by the way. Palace officials are seeking a large rise in the £7.9 million a year that she receives in civil list to pay for her official duties. I mean, if she did a gig every day, it'd still be dear, would that? But never mind. Rising inflation and the credit crunch mean that the Queen is projected to have a £6.5 million shortfall this year. Why is the credit crunch affecting her? I don't understand. I don't. I mean, it's not as if the credit crunch, all right, the interest on her mortgage has gone up. She doesn't have a mortgage. In fact, she lives rent-free. No cost to it. Doesn't have an electric bill. How is the credit crunch affecting Her Majesty's finances? I really can't make that work. Surely Her Majesty hasn't got a credit card. Well, maybe she has, given that she doesn't carry cash, has no need of it. I'm not having a go. I think the royal family come to us as a bit of a bargain, to be honest, but I can't quite work out how the credit crunch affects royalty. Certainly not Her Majesty. Ah, well, what do I know? 20-1 on BBC Radio Manchester. News headline, Anna Dawson.
Detectives in Salford are hunting a gang of suspected car thieves who shot at police as they were being chased. No one was injured in the shooting, which happened last night on Eccles New Road. A Stockport lorry driver has been describing how he helped police when two women repeatedly ran into speeding traffic on the M6. The twin sisters from Sweden were spotted walking along the central reservation of the motorway near Stoke. And 500 jobs are going at HSBC, the bank's blaming the current financial crisis. Manchester's weather, a fine and dry afternoon, highs of 18 Celsius.
BBC Radio Manchester, 2020 traffic.
If you're using the M6 southbound this afternoon, watch out for heavy traffic between 19 at Knutsford and junction 17 at Sandbach. But all seems fairly quiet on the M62, returning to normal slowly but surely between 22 Rishworth Moor and 21 Mill Row in light of an earlier overturned caravan. Don't forget, if you're using the Metro link as of tomorrow, that tram stations will be closed at Piccadilly and Piccadilly Gardens due to engineering work set to take place over the next eight weeks. Now, services will run between Bury and Altrincham every 6 minutes and between Eccles and Victoria every 12 minutes. And there will be shuttle buses running between Fairfield Street and Market Street every 10 minutes. Those services will increase during peak times. And flight schedules seem to be returning back to normal now to and from Manchester Airport after earlier problems at the Air Traffic Control Centre in Swanwick. Now, don't forget, if you can update me further, call in on 0161 244 4951. I'm Carla Banks.
BBC Radio Manchester, Sports with Will Perry.
Good afternoon. Well, let's start with the cricket. It's lunch on day 3 of Lancashire's championship match with Somerset. It's been a good first session. Chris Mellaband's at Taunton.
130 for 5, Somerset at lunch, so they lead Lancashire by 84 runs. Craig Kieswetter on 10 and Ian Blackwell on 25 have all the responsibility for the West Country side as they try and keep hold of their hopes of winning the county championship title. But it's been Lancashire's morning, a disciplined bowling performance from Stuart Law's men with 3 wickets, the scalps to be taken. James Hildreth, the first man out, LBW to Glenn Chappell for 22 as he played across the line, pushing forward. Then danger man Xander De Bruyne went, pushing forward to Gary Keady, and Keady's second over, Luke Sutton taking an easy chance behind the timbers. That was 94 for 4, and it soon became 96 for 5 when Peter Trigo, who'd starred in the first innings with 81, played a dreadful shot trying to hit Gary Keady out of the stadium when he only had 1. The ball ballooned in the air and Oliver Newby gratefully took the catch. So Somerset lead by 84 runs. Lancashire still in pole position, but don't forget what happened at Liverpool last week. This great game of cricket of ours can easily change. Somerset 130 for 5.
Regular updates, of course, from Chris throughout the day here on BBC Radio Manchester. You can also get ball-by-ball commentary online at bbc.co.uk/Manchester. Sale captain Juan Martín Fernández-Lobe will miss this evening's Guinness Premiership match against Gloucester at Edgeley Park. He's failed a fitness test with a neck problem and will be replaced by Luke Abraham. Well, the Sharks have only scored 1 try so far this season, and head coach Kingsley Jones knows things can only get better.
We know we can improve, but the mood is positive, that we've started off really well, and we take confidence from that, particularly confidence with the defence. When you don't have good team spirit, it's often shown in the defence. But we have been a bit conservative with the game plan in the first 2 games particularly, and that's perhaps led to why we haven't scored as many tries as we like as well. You know, the win is key to us to go into a very tough period coming up.
Well, kickoffs at 7:45 at Edgeley Park this evening. Full commentary again online at bbc.co.uk/Manchester. In Rugby League, Wigan have added Liam Colburn and Daryl Golding to the squad for tonight's playoff match at Headingley against Leeds. St Helens await the winners. There's full match commentary in the all-new Manchester Sports from 7 o'clock. Manchester United's Cristiano Ronaldo is expected to make his first Premier League start since May against Bolton tomorrow. However, Reds boss Sir Alex Ferguson doesn't believe Ronaldo has recovered sufficiently to play the full 90 minutes at Old Trafford. United keeper Ben Amos is on standby with Edwin van der Sar expected to start, but of course Thomas Cusack struggling with injury.
We'll see what the situation is with Cusack and the other goalkeepers, but I'm just concentrating on myself and trying to keep improving, and hopefully I'll get another chance.
Well, there's full commentary from Old Trafford in the all-new Manchester Sports with Jimmy Wagg from 1 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. Wigan manager Steve Bruce believes Manchester City won't find it easy to break into the Premier League's top four following the recent takeover at Eastlands. Bruce's side take on Mark Hughes' Blues this Sunday, and the Latics boss says success may take time.
To just do it overnight for me is always going to be difficult. Even with Chelsea, it took a couple of years for them to really get the juggernaut going. You know, these teams who they're competing against have been at the top end for the best part of 10, 15, 20 years. So, and as we've seen often enough, money just doesn't buy overnight success. And so that's the challenge for them. Obviously, it's exciting times ahead. Because of obviously the wealth that they've obviously got now.
Well, the Latics have no fresh injury concerns ahead of Sunday's game. Lee Cattermole comes back into contention after serving his suspension. The UEFA Cup is to be renamed as the Europa League from next season. The new-look league will have 48 clubs in 12 groups of 4, with the top 2 in each joining the 8 third-place clubs from the Champions League in a knockout stage. UEFA has also decided that the beaten FA Cup finalists will no longer be eligible, even if the Cup winners have qualified for the Champions League. It's first against second in League 2 tomorrow. Bury face Wycombe at Gigg Lane, and manager Alan Neil says consistency is the key. The Shakers have 17 points from their opening 7 games this season, but Neil wants to let the results do the talking.
Little things have really annoyed me this week, when really I would have, let it go, but I don't know. I met someone last night and I went, incredible, you're top of the league. I went, is it? I went, yeah. He said, incredible. I said, can't see it lasting. And I went, oh, OK. Yeah, and you just let it go. But that is the perception that they look at us and think, OK, they're there now, top of the league, but give it another month. Give it another month, they won't be. But we're already been 2 months. 2 months and we're still up there.
Oh, well, finally, for now, West Ham could face legal action over the Carlos Tevez affair from players relegated with Sheffield United. At least 10 players who suffered financially after relegation in 2007 have approached lawyers with a view to claiming compensation from the Hammers.
The next live action on the Northwest's biggest sports station.
We'll keep you bang up to date with Day 3 of Lancashire's Championship match with Somerset. Then Wigan go to Leeds in the Super League playoffs. Full commentary in the all-new Manchester Sports from 7.
BBC Radio Manchester.
Oh, yeah, you're all right. 0161 228 2255, Radio Manchester at bbc.co.uk, and the text number 07786 206 951. And Lee in Gatley has text, I was stuck on the M6 that day next to a minibus of 16 Wycombe fans going to the playoff semi-final at Stockport. They missed their most important game in years due to that daft Swede. Referring, of course, to the twin Swedish. Are they Swedish twin sisters? Twin Swedish sisters, or sisters who are twins from Sweden? Either way, they're both crackers, which is about right. Val in Lee. Hiya, Val.
Hi, Alan. I've spoken to you before.
Good.
I've just listened to your rant, as usual, about Margaret Thatcher.
Yeah.
What you failed to say was the 1974 blackouts were caused primarily because the miners went on strike.
Caused by the 3-day week.
Yeah.
Mm.
That's right. You don't happen to recall that, do you?
No, I don't.
I remember my dad telling me, now whether this is true or not, I don't know, but he said during the war, the miners actually did go on strike. Now, whether that's true or not, I don't know. That's just something my dad used to tell me about. So I don't know. No doubt you can enlighten me about that.
I don't know about the miners going on strike during the war. It's a little before my time. Although there were some controversies. I'm just trying to think that the story might come to me as we continue to speak.
I've never actually gone into it, but it came back to me then.
There was something that went on. There were a number of things that went on. What you have to, I don't want to sidestep the issue, but what you have to remember is many of the men sent down the mines during the war were sent down. They didn't have a choice. The Bevans boys, as I think they ended up being called.
A choice of either going to the front. And
No, it wasn't. No, it wasn't. Many of them.
That's how I read it.
Yeah, that's how many people perceive it. But I don't think that was the case.
Jimmy Savile has gone on record saying that he was one of them, and that was his choice.
Well, it may well have been.
He didn't want to go and fight.
It may well have been a choice for some, but it wasn't a choice for all. There were many people who went down the mines. I know this because it's one of the most horrifying thoughts I have. If I'd have been alive at that time and they'd have said you're going to work down the mines, I don't know what I would have done.
No, I agree with you.
If they gave me a choice and said you go down the mines or you go to the front, I'd have gone to the front.
Yeah.
I'll take my chances there rather than go underground.
Possibly I'll be with you on that.
Well, okay, but that's a slight sidestep. If we come back to the miners' strike and the 3-day week and all the rest of it, you can say that Thatcher resolved that. Well, yes, you can, by all means do so. And it's easy to argue that the miners' unions needed to be broken.
Yes.
And I can perceive that argument from a right-wing perspective. But the reason the mine workers were broken in terms of the trade union had nothing to do with the economics of the nation or even the power supply or anything else. It was about picking on the biggest, if you like, when you're being bullied. Thatcher perceived, and many people in the country at the time perceived, the miners and other unions as being too powerful. She came to the throne and said, right, I'll take on the biggest and beat them.
That's true.
Now,
I mean, the mood of the country then was for the unions, per se, to be knocked off the perches, if you like.
Indeed, to be not as powerful as they are, and to be taken down a peg or two.
And that's what they needed, because really the top brass of the unions, anyway, weren't really interested in the workers.
Well,
a lot of them. I wouldn't say all of them, but a lot of them.
I suspect that I wouldn't agree with that.
No, you probably
in the
wouldn't.
strongest possible terms. However, I would agree with they got less involved with their members and more involved with politics.
Correct.
The argument they would give, and I reject the argument, but the argument they would give is they needed to change the way the economics of our country worked.
I can't equate the idea of leaders of unions retiring and taking peerages. That doesn't.
I have some difficulty.
With me.
I have difficulty with anyone that accepts a peerage.
Oh, well,
and
so do I.
Some of my friends have.
I'll agree with you on that.
I mean, I've even had this conversation. You're ringing from Lee. Well, your leader, of course, the political leader of Lee, is Peter Smith, who a few years ago became Lord Peter Smith. And frankly, I have to say that I find the whole idea of particularly Labour politicians accepting peerages is utterly ludicrous. However, there is an argument for it, and that is that the House of Lords, our second chamber, has some quite powerful elements to it. It can be very powerful. It can affect our nation, and it was naturally a biased to the right. And what appointing life peerages does is it at least gives the opportunity to correct that imbalance.
Take them to the left. I won't agree with that.
However, you know, that is...
And can I just mention in passing, this thing you've been on about, shall we be worried about loss of power?
Yes.
You know, I mean, when this government came to power, it was noted that a lot of the power stations needed upgrading and sorting out whether to go from coal to nuclear. And then the Green lobby stepped in, and this government consistently gave in to the Greens, as far as I can see, to the detriment of the country now. Because I read in the paper, years ago, I read an article saying that we would go nuclear. Whatever they said now, the Green lobby would have we would have to go nuclear because Europe favours nuclear power. And what Europe favours, we will go with. And that's a case in point. This has been proven now, isn't it? Because the French are going to build a new power station, which are going to be nuclear. I don't have any gripe with that. But what my gripe is that possibly it's been sidelined too long, and we've gone along the green route, albeit wind farms, which to me seem a waste of money and a waste of time from what I can read about.
Okay, how are they a waste of money and a waste of time? We've got one of the largest...
making a lot of money out of them, and it's all coming from the taxpayer.
Well, okay, well, I have to say to you
they're
that...
not... how can they produce as much electricity as we need? They can't possibly.
Well, okay, there are a number of questions you ask there. The first one is, statements. The first one is the money's coming from the taxpayer. I promise you, if we built nuclear-powered stations, coal-fired power stations, or any other power station in this country, the money would come from the taxpayer.
Well, that's true,
and
but
somebody,
they will perform, and they
well,
will
yeah, but
supply the electricity
I'm just
we
dealing.
need.
I'm just dealing with the statement you made that it's the taxpayers' money and people are making a lot of money out of it. Well, they are, and they would do so. Whatever source was used, to say that the government has done nothing about power supply, you are right and wrong at the same time. They've done a lot about power supply in terms of building, and I agree with you, but building wind farms. Wind farms, we are told, are producers of, in the long term, cheap, but most importantly, green energy. Now, I'm not a fan of wind farms, and if we have to have them, I don't see why we have to have them here. Why can't we have them out at sea where they're doing no flaming harm? But there you are. That's another story entirely. But to come back to the government and its ability or otherwise to develop energy resources, it's in a very difficult position, put there by the person who privatised it. There was a time when the government, well, you'll remember those times, post-Second World War, when the government used to announce every year how many council houses it was going to build. Doesn't build any now. Why? Because it can't, because they've all been given away. And they didn't even allow the money, the council house. The government paid to have a council house built at its expense. It then took rent off the people to keep it maintained. And then along came somebody, I can't remember who now, but some Prime Minister who said, let's privatise them all, and gave them...
devil.
I don't know what you mean by that, Val. And gave them all for a song,
Yeah.
to the tenants.
I agree, that was wrong.
Right. Well, she did the same with the electricity industry and indeed with the power supply
but she didn't
industry.
do it all on her own, did she?
She didn't do it on her own.
She's got to have the will of Parliament to do these.
She has, and we all remember how the will of Parliament is controlled, as it is now, by a massive majority. Absolutely massive majority.
Not for long, I would suspect.
Yeah, we shall have to wait and see.
Bites the bullet.
Well, whether he does or doesn't, I think the next election is going to be an interesting one. I very much.
So.
It's going to be.
I look forward to it immensely.
So do I. I look forward to all elections. It will be fun, but I find this idea of first past the post politics that gives huge majorities. I find it dangerous. My mum used to say to me, power corrupts, absolute power corrupts absolutely.
True.
Anyway, we'll have to agree and disagree in equal measure. Have a good day, Val.
You too.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.
0161 228 2255. Ruth Kelly's still in the news. Transport Minister Ruth Kelly today described the circumstances surrounding her resignation from the Cabinet as frustrating. News that Ms Kelly was to quit as a minister at the next reshuffle was spread around the conference bars in Manchester in the early hours of Wednesday. The announcement dampened the effect of Gordon Brown's well-received speech to reassert his leadership the day before. Ms Kelly said she was leaving the Cabinet to spend more time with her young family, but the resignation was mired in confusion because of her alleged disaffection with Mr Brown's leadership. Well, there you are. Well, we were in the middle of that, weren't we? We were in the middle of that and enjoying ourselves immensely.
Nice to see you,
Fabulous.
Strictly Come Dancing is back. There was magic movement in those hits.
Best first dance I have ever seen.
Our first couple have already gone home. Phil and Flavia.
A few mistakes, but I enjoyed it.
And the remaining 15 are feeling the heat on the dance floor. Strictly Come Dancing, tomorrow night at 6:45 on BBC One.
Yes. No, I'm not going on it. They've never asked. They only have famous people. But he was rubbish, wasn't he, the one? Oh, come on. It's a shame to criticise, but he was bloody rubbish, wasn't he? Absolute rubbish. No, says Andrew in Warrington. No, Monsieur Alain. Power companies would have eagerly had power stations built, but many years ago Blair doggedly and repeatedly refused to upset the electorate, especially environmental lobby, by giving the go-ahead. Alan, the Queen bought the Tatton Park estate, Knutsford land, not the house, last year for $35 million to increase her land portfolio. She isn't that hard up then, says David in Cheshire. I didn't know that the Queen bought Tatton Park. I thought Tatton Park was still owned entirely by Cheshire County Council and is managed by... Is it the other way round? I think it's managed. It's funded by Cheshire County Council, but it's owned by, not English Heritage, the other one, National Trust. So, no, I don't think you're right there, David, but if you are, I bow to your superior knowledge. But my guess is I'll not be doing much bowing.
Meet Interfaith Minister Faye Barrett when she joins me, Mike Schaff, this Sunday from 7 on BBC Radio Manchester.
How can we have a minister for interfaith? Crying out loud. Oh, well, never mind. 0161 228 2255. You got something to say? Tell us all.
95.1 FM.
DAB Digital Radio.
And the World Wide Web.
This is Manchester.
BBC Radio Manchester.
At 1 o'clock, a man describes the moment a police chase through Salford ended in his family's home.
I've never seen so many police in my life. There must have been about 20 or 30 police cars and about 100 police.
And we speak to the Stockport man who watched in horror as two sisters deliberately ran into motorway traffic.
And Ronaldo and Van der Sar are expected to start against Bolton tomorrow.
Well, this afternoon is going to be dry and bright. We'll see some sunshine and top temperatures will get to 18 Celsius.
And traffic still queuing on the M6 southbound because of an earlier collision between 17 Sandbach and Sandbach services. Delays as far-reaching as junction 18 Middlewich.
Good afternoon, I'm Anna Dawson. Detectives in Salford are hunting a gang of suspected car thieves who shot at police as they were being chased. No one was injured in the shooting, which happened last night on Eccles New Road. A few minutes later, the car was abandoned and one of the men forced his way into a house in Odsall. The man who lives there, Bill Cobbledick, told us what happened when there was a knock at his door.
I just opened the door, he come in, shut the door behind him and dashed up the stairs. I said, what's going on? I thought someone was after him. It was just 5 minutes later, then we heard all these lights flashing and police on the antenna shouting, police. I've never seen so many police in my life. There must have been about 20 or 30 police cars and about 100 police.
Well, after a standoff lasting an hour and a half, a 26-year-old man was arrested on suspicion of attempted murder. Superintendent Leo Gildardi says they later found a double-barrel shotgun nearby.
At that point, we had no information as to whether or not the individual was still armed or whether he'd been armed. And a shotgun was later recovered near to the address, but not in the address.
A Stockport lorry driver has been describing the moment he saw twin sisters run into the fast lane of the M6. The women from Sweden were spotted in the central reservation of the motorway near Stoke, and when officers arrived, they dashed into the oncoming traffic. One was hit by a car but appeared unhurt, and they were both taken to the roadside. Andy Fairclough from Reddish says both women then ran back into the traffic again.
And I saw the articulated lorry go over one of the women. Then I looked to my left and the second woman had been hit by a silver car, got knocked in the air and onto the carriageway.
Well, Andy helped 5 other people restrain one of the sisters as she tried to dash into the carriageway for a third time.
Took one in the chest and had to grab her again, but she had so much strength it was pretty unbelievable, really. We managed to restrain her and get her off to the side of the motorway and out of harm's way. I can't actually believe that the pair of them survived. It was a horrible sight to see.
A man's been arrested after a student was raped in Fallowfield. A 20-year-old was attacked last Sunday night in Plattsfields Park after getting lost coming back from a friend's house. A 20-year-old man's been arrested. Police are appealing for witnesses as they think 2 men may have carried out the attack. Bolton Primary Care Trust is hitting back after a report ranked it amongst the worst performing areas in the country for emergency health care. Bolton and Warrington came in the bottom 25 for services including hospital A&E, out-of-hours GPs and ambulance services. But Tim Evans, Chief Executive of Bolton PCT, says recent changes to services haven't been taken into account.
Usually when these reports come out, you can see that there are things that we need to do. Unusually on this one, it doesn't bear much relationship to where I think we are as an organisation for 2 reasons. One is time has marched on, we've improved, things have changed. The second is that we've somehow failed to communicate some of the things we had in place even when the report was being done.
And HSBC's the latest bank to announce job cuts. 500 posts are going, most in its investment banking division in London.
BBC Radio Manchester Sports with Will Perry.
Manchester United's Cristiano Ronaldo is expected to make his first Premier League start since May against Bolton tomorrow. However, Reds boss Sir Alex Ferguson doesn't believe he's recovered sufficiently to play the full 90 minutes at Old Trafford. United keeper Edwin van der Sar is set to start, but Ben Amos is on standby with Thomas Cusack struggling. The UEFA Cup is to be renamed as the Europa League from next season. The new-look league will have 48 clubs in 12 groups of 4, with the top 2 in each joining the 8 third-place clubs from the Champions League in a knockout stage. Still lunch on day 3 at Lancashire's championship match with Somerset. Chris Malaban's at Taunton.
130 for 5 as the two teams take lunch, and it'll be Lancashire who are enjoying theirs significantly more than Somerset, because Lancashire have picked up 3 wickets in the morning session. Hildreth for 22, De Bruyne for 33 and Trigo for 1, 2 for Keedy and 1 for Chappell as Lancashire take control. So Somerset's lead 84 runs with 5 wickets still intact.
More from Chris throughout the day, and you can get ball-by-ball commentary online at bbc.co.uk/Manchester. Sale captain Juan Martin Fernandez-Lobbe will miss this evening's Guinness Premiership match against Gloucester at Edgeley Park. He's failed a fitness test with a neck problem and will be replaced by Luke Abraham. Kickoffs at 7:45. There's full commentary online at bbc.co.uk/Manchester. And in Rugby League, Wigan have added Liam Colburn and Daryl Golding to the squad for tonight's playoff match against Leeds at Headingley. St Helens await the winners. There's full match commentary in the all-new Manchester Sports from 7.
BBC Radio Manchester, satellite weather with Heather Stott.
Well, we end the week with a dry, bright afternoon, some nice spells of sunshine. It feels pleasantly warm because we've got light winds and top temperatures of 18 Celsius.
Allan Beswick with you on the phones. 0161 228 2255.
BBC Radio Manchester.
Hello. How are you? You all right? Good. Margaret in Knutsford, who knows a thing or two apparently, tells us that Her Majesty, they're on speaking terms, Her Majesty did not buy Tatton. She bought Tabley, which is somewhat smaller. I don't remember that either, to be honest. But I'm prepared to accept it, but I don't remember that, Tabley. Did she buy Tabley? What's she want with it? How many bloody houses does she want? Apparently it's the finest Palladium mansion in the West and was built in the 1760s. It's also at Knutsford, obviously. Yeah. But there are no catering facilities at Tabley. You can tell I'm reading it off the internet. But they do have a tea room, which serves lunches, hot and cold drinks, biscuits and cakes during normal, presumably onwards to say normal working hours, opening hours or whatever. It's a nice house. Yeah. Ours is a nice house, ours is. Catering at Tabley. There we are. Rosemary, Grace, no mention of Her Majesty at all. But that's neither here nor there. Booking form, the house, the art collection. It's quite nice, the art. I thought Tabley, I thought it was owned by the University of Manchester. I could be wrong. I could so very... Yes, it is. It is. Oh, I see. No, well, now... It's the art collection that's owned by the University of Manchester. The art collection. Not necessarily the house. Yeah, so if the Queen thought, buying the house, I'll get all them pictures, she's been shafted. Because she won't get the pictures, they're owned by the university. But given she owns the university, that kind of balances it out. And, you know, to my shame... I've not been to Tabley. I've done all the other stately homes round here, but I've not been to Tabley. I better go before the Queen takes it down south. Blimey. Anyway, there you are. That's the gist of it. So she didn't buy Tatton, but it's looking a bit like she might have bought Tabley. It's hard to care, isn't it? Very hard. Omar Bakri's daughter has become a lap dancer. I think they've got it wrong. She's just doing what everyone else is doing. Asset stripping. Very good, Albert Inley. That's the hand of Hook. Yeah, him, the evil Hook, as they call him in the papers, Omar Bakri. His daughter's become a lap dancer, apparently. I read that in the paper this morning. It's quite interesting, wasn't it, really? No wonder he's grumpy. Isn't it? No wonder he is grumpy. Oh, and Natasha Kaplinsky's given birth to a boy, apparently. So, no, I said I'd work through the paper. She's had a boy. No, I'll rephrase that, because you never know, he might get you in trouble. She's given birth to a boy. That's probably a better way of presenting it, yeah. And on the same page in the Daily Express, a teenager endured 2 years of hell after she was raped and her attacker walked free. Chloe O'Neill was told there wasn't enough evidence to charge 41-year-old Stephen Whitworth, and she was branded a liar. But Whitworth went on to carry out 2 brutal sex assaults on children, and on arrest confessed that he indeed had attacked Chloe when she was 15. But it's hard, isn't it? I mean, I blow hot and cold with the cops. Sometimes I think they do a great job, and other times I think, God almighty, they're letting us down. And we probably, all of us, think that about everybody at some point. But what else are they to do? If there isn't the evidence to get the conviction, there's no point bringing it to court, is there? Absolutely none. We're going to talk to Terry in Titherington shortly.
This is the Northwest's biggest sports station. This is BBC Radio Manchester.
Off goes the head of Ronaldo. He's back.
It's a local derby at Old Trafford on Saturday as Manchester United take on Bolton Wanderers.
Brilliant header. Kevin Davies with a real stunner.
We've got full match commentary from 1 o'clock with Jimmy Wagg in the all-new Manchester Sports. Coverage too of Oldham against Huddersfield, Stockport's trip to Cheltenham and its first v second in League 2 as Bury entertain Wickham.
Morale with the shot has been deflected and it's gone in and Bury have the lead.
The all-new Manchester Sports. From 1 o'clock tomorrow, BBC Radio Manchester.
Yeah, very good day to you. How are you? Are you well? Excellent. Hi, Alan. I got this from a pal in the States. I know your feelings on the US of A, but this does make sense. It could work here too. It's Keith. I know it's a long read, but just persevere. I don't think I will, because it's got numbers like 85,000 million in it. Let's assume... No, 85... I can't do it. It's too hard. I can't do arithmetic in me head, or even with a pen, and probably not even with a calculator. I can't do arithmetic that involves numbers like 85,000 million. I'm sorry, I just can't. I'm not clever enough. Terry in Titherington, hi.
Hello, Alan. Good afternoon to you on this beautiful day.
It is, isn't it?
One of the rare ones we've had this year. I couldn't help but come on to your programme again. I was prompted by the lady speaking earlier about the miners' strike.
Yes.
It struck a bell with me because at that particular period, I owned a business in Hazel Grove, a fashion business, mainly ladies wear, believe it or not, although I'm an engineer. And at that period, we could have just one light bulb in the whole of the premises, etc. And one of my customers was a rather wealthy lady, I feel, because she used to buy quite a lot of my goods. And she came in one day during that period and they said our husband was absolutely livid with the miners bringing us down to a light bulb in the house at certain times of the day. And I couldn't help but hear her, because I'd spent one day in Agecroft Colliery as a schoolboy, a visit to the coal mine, and I was determined never ever to go down a coal mine again, what I saw. Anyway, I just said to her, obviously, I said, valued customer, and I don't want to upset you, but I'm going to possibly do just that. You mentioned that your husband is livid. I feel he must have a fairly well-paid job because you spend a lot of money here. I said, and I'm quite convinced if they offered him 10 times his present salary to go down a coal mine, he wouldn't go. She was speechless. Do you understand the point I'm trying to make, Alan?
I do, yes. A lot of people had a lot of things to say about the miners, but not many of them had swapped jobs with them.
Exactly. And
horrible job.
Absolutely. I mean, the short time I was down there, I realised you had to pay people a decent, and I mean a decent wage, to do the filthy, horrible job that they went down on a normal working day. That's all I've got to say. I hope the thing is, it was obvious what her background was and who she voted for. My point was, I had a business and I needed people with money, and I wanted people to have, a working day with salaries to come into my shop. The Tories would have destroyed all that.
Well, would they?
I certainly would.
Well, OK, you can be certain, but we can test even certainties round here.
Yes.
I mean, there are those that say that had we carried on in the direction we were going, we'd have ended up with our country at a standstill and held to ransom by people. OK, they're horrible jobs, what miners do. Absolutely horrible jobs, although I've done programmes about miners, and I tell you that they loved it and wouldn't have changed it for the world, to be perfectly frank. In fact, when I interviewed miners as their pits were being forcibly closed, and one of them was offered £50,000 to be made redundant, said I'd give it up tomorrow. I'd go back to work tomorrow. They can have the 50 grand back if they want it. I would go back down a hole in the ground tomorrow.
I understand their point of view, yes.
They did love the job.
Yes.
And just because we think it's a horrible job doesn't mean they do. They loved it. However, the reality was that the miners and others were holding the country to ransom. They were saying, we are here, we produce the coal, we're not going to produce coal anymore unless you give us what we want. And that meant that lots of other people ended up getting laid off, getting put on short time, getting made redundant and all the rest of it.
I understand your point there, I really do. Don't you also think the banks you've mentioned recently also have always held people to ransom, and they're doing it now?
Well, they're not doing it now. They're not holding people to ransom now. They're running scared and hiding under the stairs.
Well, yes.
But I suppose they have in a way.
And yes, but they've managed to store away a few million pounds in the meantime.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Good on you, Terry.
All the best to you.
Have a good day, mate. 01612282255 if for reasons that are beyond mine you have an interest in sport. You may be interested to know that Joe Kinnear, as opposed to Roy, who's dead, Joe Kinnear has been appointed as the interim manager of Newcastle United. Apparently, Terry What's-His-Face turned it down at Terry Venables turned it down at £100,000 a game. He said, no, you either give me the job right or I'm not having it. And we have now found out that the Queen has bought 3,600 acres of land around Knutsford. The Crown Estate, last week, this is in July last, the Crown Estate last week paid out more than £35 million for the Tabley Estate, which includes 18 farms, 52 homes and the Cheshire Showground. But it doesn't buy the house or its grounds. Both will remain in the ownership of Manchester University for now. However, she is putting up a toll road and you can't get to the house unless you give her 20 quid a ton. I added the last bit. Now, so there you are. The Tabley is still owned by Manchester University, as is the art collection ensconced therein. And I'm told that it's well worth a view. It's well worth having a look. Has anyone been? I've not. And I wish I had, really. And I think I will. But it's probably closed now, isn't it? Did they close for the winter, like the others do? The houses, the grounds are open, but who cares? Yeah, I don't know. Can you get in? Are you allowed in? That's the other question, isn't it? Because it's the universities. They might not let you in. Oh, here we go. That's my answer question. The following rooms are open to the public. The drawing room, the common parlour, and the dining room. Oh, we're going to have a scran. The Oak Hall, the gallery. Oh, loads of it's open. What its hours of opening are, I don't know. You may have to book. Do you know? Does anyone know? Anyone care now I think of it? Forthcoming events. In the grounds of Tabley. In Tabley Park. Tabley's a mile from Knutsford. Nothing here. Nothing about the opening hours. I have to presume, if they don't have the opening hours on their website, that they don't just... It's not like Tatton where you can just go and pay your £3 or whatever it is. It's probably more than that now, isn't it, on the day? You see, I'm just demonstrating how little I know about the patch, which is the exact opposite of what they pay me to do. Never mind. Keith says, well, let someone else read it first and explain it. You don't have to be a math wizard to follow the idea. Well, that's all very well for you to say, but I'm here on my own. He's a fat lorry who sat in there. Yeah, I'm here on my own. It's just me, this, you know. I don't have a squad of staff to go and have a look at it. An interfaith minister, says Peter in Melbourne, formerly of Oldham. Are you on a tour? Have you took your band over there, Clarky? Anyway, an interfaith minister. Here in Australia, we've got a climate change minister. And what's more, some people take her seriously. I bet not many do, though, Peter. They're not big on taking people seriously in Melbourne. It's a great city, isn't it? An absolutely fabulous city. But it must be 1 o'clock in the morning there. Have you had something funny that kept you up? Oh, here we go. Blah-de, 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 blah-de. Blah-de, blah-de, blah-de. Oh, here we go. I've been sent this. Tabley House was designed by John Carr of York for Sir Peter Byrne, Leicester. Built and completed in 1769. His son, Sir John Fleming, Leicester, built later I don't know. Oh, BT, it's Baronet, isn't it? Baronet! Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, Baronet. Anyway, later First Lord of Tabley was the first great patron and collector of British paintings. He assembled a splendid collection at Tabley and in his London house during the first decade of the 19th century, ultimately with the intention of establishing a national gallery of British art. J.M.W. Turner, Henry Thompson, James Ward were among the many painters who stayed at Tabley. Today, important works by them can be seen in the rooms from which they were created, together with fine paintings by Dobson, Lely, Reynolds, Coates, Northcote, Calcott, Fuseli. Very good. I thought that was a pastor. Lawrence, Opie, Martin, and others. These pages are designed to give an introduction. Blah, blah, blah. Oh, here we go. We can go. We can do it. Tabley House is open until the end of October. On Thursdays, Fridays, Saturdays, Sundays and bank holidays. Well, we're out of them. But we've still got some Thursdays, Fridays, Saturdays and Sundays left. We've got the whole of October. And the last entries at R4, you can get in from 2 till 5. Admission is £4 for adults, £1.50 for children and students with a card. Free entry for children not tall enough to see over the admissions desk. I'm going to crawl in. 10% discount for parties of 25 or more adults if they're booked in advance and during normal opening hours. And if you want to visit outside them hours, you've got to ask. The tea room's open from 12 till 5, so the tea room opens 2 hours before the place. That's it. The tea room interior is not currently accessible by wheelchair. And they do marriages there as well. This is fabulous. Where's he got all that from? It's not on a website. You'd think it would be, wouldn't you? But no, not on the one I looked at. Anyway, there you are. So, Tabley, which is not owned by the Queen, but all the grass around it is. Tabley, who was built by a bloke called Carr, for a bloke called Burnlester. Burnlester, what a good idea. No, it's not. No, I'm not in favour of that. Anyway, so it's open from 2 till 5, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, up until the end of October. £4 get in. There you are. Discounts for kids. That's... You see, it's just give, isn't it? It's just give, Saturday. Just gone 1:20. We'll give you the news headlines with Anna Dawson.
Detectives in Salford are hunting a gang of suspected car thieves who shot at police as they were being chased. No one was injured in the shooting, which happened last night on Eccles New Road. Bolton Primary Care Trust is hitting back after a report ranked it amongst the worst performing areas in the country for emergency health care. Bolton and Warrington came in the bottom 25 for services like hospital A&E, out-of-hours GPs and ambulance services. And a Stockport lorry driver has been describing the moment he saw twin sisters run into the fast lane of the M6. The women from Sweden were spotted in the central reservation of the motorway near Stoke, and when officers arrived, they dashed into the oncoming traffic. Manchester's weather dry and sunny this afternoon, highs of 18 Celsius.
BBC Radio Manchester, 2020 traffic.
The middle and outside lanes on the M62 heading eastbound away from Manchester are closed off at the moment because of an accident that's happened around junction 22 Rishworth Moor. Congestion all the way back towards junction 21 at Milne Row after a car overturned and a 4x4 spun around and is currently facing the wrong direction across the carriageway. It's affecting traffic between Manchester and Huddersfield. On the M6 we're also seeing delays on camera between 17 Sandbach and 19 Knutsford. And just a word of advice, if you're using the trams tomorrow and for the next 8 weeks, in fact, the tram stations will be closed on the Metrolink at Piccadilly and Piccadilly Gardens due to engineering works that are scheduled in. Services will run between Bury and Altrincham every 6 minutes and between Eccles and Victoria every 12 minutes. And if you can update me further, call in 0161 244 4951. I'm Cara Banks.
2020 traffic means you get an update every 20 minutes through the day.
BBC Radio Manchester.
Evelyn in Rill says, "Hi Alan, we could cut back on electricity if the people who decorate their houses with Christmas lights from November were not allowed to do it until the week before Christmas. Seems such a waste when they're always reminding us to conserve energy." Well, why limit it to the week before? Why not just ban it altogether? William in Macclesfield. Hiya, William.
Hello, my friend. How are you?
I'm very well.
I've chosen today to talk about a subject which is relatively close to both of our hearts.
Oh, aye.
And I think for once we may agree.
Oh, I'm not having that.
I tell you what, I wouldn't put it past you to change that situation.
I change with the wind. Go on, Bill.
Absolutely. I don't blame you. Boxing. I've long suspected of modern-day boxers, Alan, as you seem to do, that they are mediocre. And I'm surprised at the mediocrity. But I do understand why people still watch it. It's hyped up. New generations, and of course new generations have no record of what happened in the past. I do. I'm surprised at the mediocrity of Hatton and Khan, particularly Khan, who I think is just, the hype he's done, well, thanks to the BBC, that is, of course, because they made him out to be a sort of semi-god, and he's quite mediocre, and his recent performance has showed that. Now, I never had any proof of this, but a few weeks ago, fortunately, as a present, I was given a gift of the first ever recorded, I believe it to be the first ever recording of a recorded film recording with a commentator of the first heavyweight championship to be done so. And that was in 1952 between Rocky Marciano and Jersey Joe Walcott. Now, just to give you an idea of the difference, requirements, Rocky Marciano at that time was 28 years old. To the commentator, he was a youth, a young lad, he called him, and he was 28. He'd already had 28 or 29 professional fights before he got his chance. Jersey Joe Walcott was about 30, believed to be about 38. He'd had about 180 fights. They were both as fit as fleas. The fight went 13 rounds, non-stop fighting, punches of all types, the calibre of which you wouldn't see today. Rocky Marciano was knocked on the floor in the first round. He took a count of 8, I believe it was, got up, went another 13 rounds and knocked out Jersey Joe Walcott in round 13. He went on to have 39 professional fights, and he's the only heavyweight champion ever to be undefeated. Now, there were many fighters like that. I can name loads of them.
Well, yes, there were.
And they were fantastic. They could take the punch, and the fighting was 15 rounds in those times, not the 12 of today. They were just totally. It was a totally different ball game. There was hard as iron, and you just don't get guys like that anymore.
I suspect you still do. But there is
few and far between, Alan. That's the difference.
Well,
then they were coming off.
Hang on.
They were coming off the production line, 10 to a dozen in those times.
Yes, they were, but there are all sorts of reasons why.
Oh yeah, don't deny that, Alan.
Whereas I think you're probably correct in saying that them lads back in history, they were as hard as hell. Hard as nails, if you like, and fighting was a hard game. It's still a hard game.
Oh, absolutely. It's as hard as you make it.
But it's an entirely different game now. Entirely different. They don't allow the kind of things that used to go on. 5-minute rounds, 16 of them, and all that came.
No, these were 3-minute rounds. I'm talking 1952, Alan.
Well, I was only 4, so
3-minute rounds.
You will have the better knowledge of me. But the World Championships used to be 5 minutes. The rounds used to be 5 minutes.
You are going back a long time.
No, I'm talking about. I think.
No, you're wrong there, Alan.
Well, I could well be.
You are wrong there because I'm not an expert, but I've got a good knowledge of boxing. I used to be a schoolboy boxer.
Didn't Muhammad Ali Cassius Clay? Didn't he fight Sonny Liston in 5-minute rounds?
No, he fought Sonny Liston and knocked him out twice, I think.
Indeed.
But they were just normal 3-minute rounds.
Yeah, you didn't knock him out the first time. It was a stoppage because Sonny Liston did his shoulder in, didn't he?
Yeah. I mean,
so it's a technical knockout.
Again, this is the difference. This was the beginning of the end. You could see the difference.
Go on.
And also, I think that today, the build of them, you just didn't get guys like that. They just, to me, they pumped up with drugs as well to make them. And they're all just great big hulking blokes. And in those times, I mean, the blokes are 14 stone as fit as fleas, and they could punch twice as hard. You know, they were just different calibre altogether. Now, I must advise people, if they want to see proper boxing, there are clubs now where you can see fights of total calibre. Joe Lewis. There's quite a number of them in the 50s when they were at its peak. After the war to 1960 was a peak of it. You did get a good blip with Muhammad Ali, but nowadays they're just pretty performing pups, aren't they?
I mean, what about Joe Calzaghe? Is he just a performing pup, or is he the real deal?
He's not one or two guns. I don't know whether or not he would have, I don't think he would have stood up the test of the time in those times, to be honest with you. I think today he does seem to be a very good boxer by today's standards. I wouldn't deny that. You will always throw the odd one up.
But you can only have I mean, the whole thing is you said the BBC built up Khan. Well, all right, we might have done. We might be to blame, and he's probably ruined the day he ever got involved with us. But the reality is, he may not be. Should we say, the greatest boxer the Lord ever put breath in, but of his type is the best around at the moment.
In this country, yeah. As I said to somebody years ago, until he's put in with the Americans, you just don't know. You just don't know. But I said I suspect, because I've watched him, I suspect he's got a glass jaw, and I fortunately proved right. You know.
And then the other one you had to go at our own dear Mr. Hatton.
Well, he was a good boxer. He was a good boxer, not world class.
But he must be world class. He's world champion.
But he was
in his weight.
Yeah, but he was again. They manoeuvre a lot more today. They pick. The managers decide who they're going to box and whether they can. Which is
not in the world champion. Eventually they have to fight the bloke that's put up against him by the boxing authorities.
I think when he was put up against the real best one, he was shown to be what he was.
Yeah, but he was fighting at outside his weight.
Well, yes, I say he's a good boxer, but I don't think in the days of in the 50s, which the days of those type of guys, that I think he's a bruiser, and he would have been made for those guys because they would have lapped him up. To be honest with you,
you reckon?
Yeah, I reckon so. Yeah.
But it's that thing. They did it in 1965-66 with Muhammad Ali, who was still Cassius Clay at the time, having beaten Liston in 64.
Yeah.
They then did the thing. Would he have beaten Joe Louis? And a computer said that he probably would, but there was no other way of measuring it.
No.
It's like, again, with footballers, the footballers of today.
Yeah.
We had Ryan Giggs in here the other day. I was following him down the corridor, and looking at him, I thought, he's wringing wet, about 8 stone. There's now to the lad, and yet he's a footballing genius, without a doubt.
Well,
what would he have been like in leather boots with, woolen clothing and a leather ball?
Yeah.
It'd have been a different game, but he's still brilliant at what he does.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I think I can say boxing is still relatively the same game. I mean, it was a much harder game in the back in the 50s, and the gloves were about 2 ounces smaller. Did you know that? So virtually you were fighting with almost, I won't say bare-fisted, but a lot smaller padded gloves.
I did know that, and one of the things about that, and it is extraordinary, but with the modern boxing glove, the reason the modern boxing glove is bigger, if you like, and heavier, is because it allows the puncher to hit harder, not less hard.
Well, the theory of that, of course, is that you don't hurt your hand.
Exactly. I mean, one of the things I think they should do, because I am a boxing fan, and one of the things I would like to see in boxing is to do away with the gloves altogether, because there'd be a lot more blood, which is, you can enjoy that or not, but there'd be a lot fewer knockouts. Because you couldn't knock a bloke out with your bare hands, you'd smash your hand to bits, because heads are quite hard.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, no, I think there is that about it, but I think the idea of the 8 ounce, I think it's 8 to 12 or 8 ounce now. I forget now.
No, God,
I don't know, but I think the idea that's so they didn't get hurt as much myself.
Yeah, it is. It's the hands more. It's the hands more than the face, as it were. Anyway, we'll never change it, William. Good to talk to you. Boxing's still a great sport that my left-wing principles tell me should be banned, but I'd cry all night if it did. Have a good day.
It's a question of numbers, Alan. That's what it is. That's why they were so much better better in the 50s. They were churning them out left, right and centre. Now it's just an odd one, isn't it? So obviously...
You could be right. Good on you, mate.
Cheers, boss.
Cheers. 0161228 2225. David in Crumpsall. If I remember rightly, the limited light bulbs and 3-day week was under Edward Heath's regime, and the reason Thatcher came to power wasn't during Thatcher's regime. No, we were talking about the solution to it that was under, if solution it be, that was under Thatcher's regime, I think, and if we weren't, that was what we meant to be. Alan, it's 10:20 in Melbourne, or at least it was when Bertie Macclesfield sent that, but I can get it from the horse's mouth, because Peter has communicated again, who was in Melbourne when he communicated last time, and I suspect still is. Given that it's quite a long way. We are 9 hours in front, which makes it 10:20. It was Shiraz o'clock about an hour ago, which I think means he's up so late because he's boozing. And he reckons he still plays bass. I know. There's nothing I can say. 0161228 2225 is a guitarist in an unknown band. Barry in Bury. How are you doing, Barry?
Oh, Alan, all right, Bob?
Yeah.
Yeah. That Motorway Cops programme last night.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I was watching that. Just a bit concerned about the two foreign nationals walking down the hard shoulder of the M6, stopped by the police, and they turned out to be two Iranians who had arrived here off the back of a wagon.
Yeah.
And apparently no offence had been committed. They'd no papers on them, so there's nothing they could do with them. Like they said, they can't send them back if they've no passports or anything. They were told to, I think it was to report to the immigration service at Birmingham. They were shown the bus where to go, but they've never been seen since.
No, that's a surprise, isn't
Interesting, isn't it?
The idea that there was no, if they were walking down the motorway, there was an offence committed, because you're not allowed pedestrians.
My concern, Alan, is that if they were not stopped like this and nothing done, and they did come from Iran, had these two people connections with terrorist organisations, they've just walked into here very comfortably and very easily.
They could have done, yes.
What?
I don't know how you stop it.
Well, surely with something like that, there should be a way by these two people, without any form of documentation and having come off a wagon, they should be put in some sort of holding cell somewhere until... I mean, if you're going to do that, as they've done it, then anyone coming via a wagon or that way now, they can just come into this country willy-nilly, and they've got it free.
Well, they can't come in willy-nilly, but yes, it is without doubt, if we are to believe... And we must. If we are to believe that people come from foreign lands to commit terrorist attacks on us, if we're to believe that that happens, then for sure, we are at risk of illegal immigrants. But you can't actually stop it. It will always happen.
Yeah.
Indeed, right now in China, in Iran, in... Libya, in Russia, there are English people, British people, who have entered those countries illegally and are living what we call underground, ready for the day when war breaks out, and they are there being paid by Her Majesty's government. And if there aren't, I should bloody well want to know why. Because that's what we're supposed to be doing in this rather...
True. Oh, yeah, I agree with that, yeah.
You know, so you will never stop it. But I agree with you. If you find two people who you... Well...
You see, it's quite obvious. If I'm just myself is spotted what's happening here, then the terrorist organisation will be well aware of this is a good way of entering the country without being questioned.
It's probably not a good way of entering the country, to be honest. And I'll tell you why it's not a good way. The one thing you want, as a result of your endeavour to enter the country, is to get there. And the truth is that most of the people who are trying to get into the United Kingdom via that process don't make it. It's a lot easier to come in legitimately and then do illegitimate things. It's a lot easier. One of the ways...
I wasn't referring... Sorry to interrupt you. I was referring not to people who are genuinely trying to get out of a regime that's offensive to them, but the terrorist organisations who deliberately set people up to come here via this way, knowing they don't need to come through customs, they won't be challenged by police.
Yes, but that's the point I was making, because if... Let us turn it round. If you wanted to get into Iran... to do something really horrible, OK? You wanted to blow up, I don't know, a train in Tehran. If you wanted to do that, what you would want is the people you have persuaded or trained to do it to guarantee getting there. There's no point if they get turned away at the border. Now, an awful lot of people are prevented from entering this country before they even get here. An awful lot. They're prevented. So it's not a very reliable method. It's not. It's what you need is something. You'd have to have 1,000 of them to get 20 in. Well, what you want is 20 and guarantee they all get in.
Yeah.
There are easier ways. And if you wanted to get people into this country to do harm, you would be better off sending them in legitimately. It's more efficient. You don't need a lot. You just
But of course,
one.
you know, Alan, like those two that now have just disappeared into the system, they are either now committing offences in this country to gain money, or they're living off our national assistance on forged papers somewhere.
Well, all of that may be true,
you know.
but
But they have to exist, so if they're going to eat food, they're either going to steal it.
Exactly. Now, imagine, I come back to the terrorist argument. Let us say that those two chaps yesterday were terrorists. Wouldn't it be ironic if Iran spent 3 months training them to be super bombers, training them in everything, and then, bugger me, they go through the trouble of getting through illegally into Britain. They get here, and they get arrested for shoplifting because they've got no money. That would be balmy. That'd be balmy, wouldn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Not an efficient way.
But they are living somewhere, Alan, aren't they? They are surviving
Barry, I was dealing with... I'm not dealing with the illegal immigration bit.
No.
I'm dealing at this moment with the suggestion that they could be terrorists. It's a very, very inefficient way because you put them all the time, in the position where one foot in the wrong place and they can end up arrested. You don't want that of terrorists. What you want of a terrorist, you want a terrorist to be, I don't know, let's say, looking after children.
Oh, yeah, you want to be as anonymous as possible, don't you?
Exactly.
That's what you're looking
exactly.
for. Yeah.
So the best way to do that is to use people who are already there.
Yeah.
It is the best way.
Trouble is, some of these are not concerned about anonymity as much as if they're prepared to stand in a crowded place and detonate a bomb.
But Barry, before you stand in a crowded place to detonate a bomb, you've got to get the explosive. You've got to get it to one place. You've then got to get to the crowded place and detonate it. If it was easy to achieve, then a lot more would be doing it.
Well, that's quite
it's
possible,
not.
yeah.
It's very, very difficult to achieve. Ask the IRA. They had the right to come into this country willy-nilly. They had the right to come in, to go out. Nobody had the right to stop them moving about, but could they blow up the place? Occasionally, yes. Most of the time,
Most of the time, no. Yeah.
Good on you, Barry.
Okay,
have a good day, mate.
Cheerio on you.
It's just gone 20 to 2 on BBC Radio Manchester. News headlines. Michelle Adamson.
A man's been arrested following a dramatic police chase in Salford. Officers were shot at as they pursued a stolen car. A suspect later barged into a house before being arrested by armed officers. Out-of-hours health services in Bolton and Warrington have been criticised in a new report. The Healthcare Commission ranks the two local primary care trusts as among the worst in the country for the provision of urgent care. And the Swiss adventurer Yves Rossi has become the first person to fly solo across the Channel using a single jet-propelled wing. And Manchester's weather dry and sunny this afternoon, highs of 18 Celsius.
BBC Radio Manchester, 2020 traffic.
Let's take a look firstly to traffic cameras on the M6, and it's still fairly slow, I'm afraid, between junction 19 at Knutsford through towards junction 18 at Middlewich. And to the M62 on the eastbound stretch, and 2 lanes are still closed off because of an accident that happened earlier today around 22 Rishworth Moor, with congestion tailing back to 21 Milne Row. But recovery teams are in attendance now, and it's the middle and outside lanes of the 3 that are closed next to the exit slip at junction 22. And of course that's causing people to slow down on the westbound stretch of the carriageway as well. Now if you can update me further this afternoon, call in on the usual number 0161 244 4951. I'm Cara Banks.
BBC Radio Manchester Sports with Bill Rice.
Lancashire's cricketers are inching towards safety on day 3 of their final championship match of the season. Players underway after lunch at Somerset at Taunton. BBC Radio Manchester's Chris Malaband is there watching.
And after early inroads this morning, Lancashire are being held up by an excellent partnership. Somerset 167 for 5, leading Lancashire by 121 runs, with Craig Kieswetter on a doughty 20 and Ian Blackwell on 45. It had been Lancashire's morning as Gary Keady struck twice and Glenn Chappell once to reduce the home side to 96 for 5. And as I speak, Oliver Newby strikes, dismissing Craig Kieswetter. That was a vital breakthrough. So now 167 for 6 the score, a lead of 121. Lancashire need 4 wickets. They may yet have the chance to chase victory tonight.
Thank you, Chris. We'll have regular updates from Chris throughout the day. And if you want to, you can also listen to ball-by-ball commentary online at bbc.co.uk/Manchester. Elsewhere in the Championship, Durham are now favourites for the title. They lead by 204 runs in their match against Kent, while in the other game, Nottinghamshire are struggling against Hampshire. Hampshire are now 167 for 5 in their second innings. They lead that match now by 119 runs. Newcastle have appointed Joe Kinnear as their manager until the end of October. The former Wimbledon, Luton and Nottingham Forest boss has been out of football for 4 years, but he's happy to lend the club a hand. In other news, Steve Bruce believes that Manchester City won't find it easy to break into the Premier League's top 4 following the recent takeover at Eastlands. And Manchester United's Cristiano Ronaldo is expected to make his first Premier League start since May against Bolton tomorrow. However, the Reds boss Sir Alex Ferguson doesn't believe that Ronaldo has recovered sufficiently to play the full 90 minutes at Old Trafford. Keeper Edwin van der Sar is set to start, but Ben Amos is on standby. That's because Thomas Cusack is struggling. Steve Bruce believes City won't find it easy to break into the Premier League's top 4. That's following the recent takeover at Eastlands. Wigan take on Mark Hughes' Blues this Sunday, and the Latics boss says success may take time for City.
To just do it overnight for me is always going to be difficult. Even with Chelsea, it took a couple of years for them to really get the juggernaut going. You know, these teams who they're competing against have been at the top end for the best part of 10, 15, 20 years. So, and as we've seen often enough, money just doesn't buy overnight success. And so that's the challenge for them. Obviously, it's exciting times ahead because of obviously the wealth that they've obviously got now.
Wigan have no fresh injury concerns for the game. Lee Cattermole comes back into contention after serving his suspension. Roy Keane has quashed any thoughts that he might walk away from Sunderland. That comes after he said he wasn't willing to tolerate abuse from the Sunderland fans after the club's unconvincing League Cup win over Northampton
No, I'm not
in
walking
midweek.
up today. No, we got a game tomorrow, and I'm very much focused on the job again. I wasn't happy with what I saw the other night, and I said that, but with one or two supporters and the players. But we managed to get through, and today's a new day, and we've got a big challenge against Aston Villa tomorrow.
It's a top-of-the-table clash at Gig Lane tomorrow in League 2. Bury take on Wickham, and the Shakers captain Paul Scott says there's been a lot of changes this season compared to the days of Chris Casper.
I just think it's everything's changed really. The preparation, everything around the club's changed. It's become a bit more professional. I'm not saying it wasn't professional before, but obviously something has changed, and the players like playing with each other. There's a good team spirit. You look forward to training because there's buzz in training, and the atmosphere around the club, obviously a lot of media attention at the moment, so it's good.
Wigan Warriors are 80 minutes from a Super League Grand Final showdown with their arch-rival St Helens. They face Leeds tonight in the final eliminator match at Headingley, and the former Rhinos winger Mark Calderwood fancies Wigan's chances against his old team.
They play pretty much the same. They like to throw about a bit, so we need to stop them really. Obviously JP is signing for them, and is very big for them. If you can stop him really, I reckon we've got a good chance of winning.
Wigan have added Liam Colburn and Daryl Goulding to the squad for tonight's game. There's full match commentary in the all-new Manchester Sports from 7. The Sale captain Juan Martin Fernandez Lobe will miss this evening's Guinness Premiership match against Gloucester. He failed a fitness test with a neck problem, and he'll be replaced by Luke Abraham.
The next live action on the Northwest's biggest sports station.
Wigan Warriors take on Leeds Rhinos tonight for the right to face St Helens in the Super League Grand Final. We'll have full match commentary from Headingley in the all-new Manchester Sports from 7.
BBC Radio Manchester.
How are you doing? You all right? Good. It's all going so awfully well, isn't it? Denise in Poynton. Hiya.
Yeah. Just come back off holiday
Welcome home.
from the States. Flew into Heathrow and had to pick my bags up there. Then was flying from Heathrow to Manchester.
Yeah.
Fortunately, because I'd come from abroad, I had my passport with me. But when I checked the bags in at Heathrow, they demanded ID from me.
Yeah.
And if I had just flown, say I'd just gone to London, you know, within the country, they would still have wanted ID from me, but I wouldn't have had my passport on me. And I
But you wouldn't...
just wondered why.
OK, well, I'll come back to why, but the practicalities. If you wanted to fly from Manchester to Heathrow, you wouldn't have been able to unless you had some form of ID. They won't let you on an aircraft without some form of ID.
Which has to have a picture on?
Yeah. I think yes. So...
But they're issuing these to all these foreign students now.
Issuing what?
IDs. This is what I saw in the paper yesterday.
Oh, I see what you mean. Yesterday in the newspaper, well, in the papers today, but yesterday, Jackie Smith, the Home Secretary, showed the identity card, the proposed identity card that's about to be introduced, and the first people required to have it will be foreign people living in the UK.
Yeah.
Now, when they apply to get it, they will have to proffer some kind of identification, probably a passport, in order to get it.
Yeah.
So when an individual turns up at the airport to fly from Manchester to London, or indeed backwards, the aircraft owner will still want
How would I get
identification.
one other than my passport?
Well, you've got your passport. You could have a photographic driving licence. I'm not
I
altogether...
don't drive.
Well, then that would narrow it down. It does get harder. But if you want to fly at all, if you look on any...
You've got to have something with a picture on.
Well, you have to have an identity card, and I think they do of some sort, and I do think they insist upon a photographic one. I'm not entirely sure, but I think they do. Whenever I have flown, and I fly very rarely, but occasionally within the UK, and you would think it's silly. You used to be able to go to British Airways at Manchester, chuck the money over the counter, get on the plane like you were getting on a bus or a train. You can't anymore, and it's all supposedly to do with anti-terrorism measures. But
How would I get a photographic ID?
I don't know is the simple answer. I don't know, and I think you would be stuck with the concept of, in your case, it would have to be...
My passport?
Your passport, yes.
Oh, dear.
I know.
Oh, isn't life awful?
Well, I can think of other reasons that make it awful, but yes, it is a bit of a beggar.
So I've always got to carry my passport, even when I'm flying within my own country?
If you're... Well... Yes, in your case.
Yeah.
I'm being picky because the answer is no, you haven't got to carry your passport, but the airlines will insist on you providing some
photographic evidence.
Yeah, I'm just checking now to see whether it is an insistence on photographic there. If you fly Liverpool to Belfast...
I've had my retinas photographed, I've had my fingerprints taken.
But you still, all of the, you will still have to prove who you are, because they are worried that if you don't, you'll be someone they don't want you to be, and and you might do serious harm.
Well, to be perfectly honest, I'd love an ID, a national ID.
You would like a national identity card. Why would you like one? What?
Because if I don't want to carry my passport all the time.
Well, let me tell you can get one.
I can?
Yes, they are. I think they've already introduced it on a voluntary basis. You can choose to have an identity card. Now, I think you can do that already. It might be my memory playing tricks on me, but certainly it will be available very shortly if it's not available now. And I'm just looking at the where to fly, terms and conditions, all the rest of it, online checking. Let's have a look at review, change flights, flight information. I'm just trying to see... Oh, come on, you damn stupid machine. Well, we all talk to our machines in this business. It's the only way. Good, I'm glad I'm not alone. To retrieve your reservation...
Not in the pejorative, is it?
I argue with this and it usually wins. I'm just looking now. Check it first. You enter the confirmation number. Complete one. No, that's just a check-in online. I'm almost certain that all the airlines require photographic...
I'll get my husband to look.
Yeah, because he's got more time than me.
Yeah.
And he's got a reason for keeping you happy.
OK,
which clearly I haven't.
Thank you very, very
All
much.
right. So there you are. But I'm almost certain that all the airlines... Someone will be able to tell me. In fact, is Becky Want at the airport? She'll be able to tell you. Becky Want's on next. She'll be able to tell you. But I think also that one is allowed to volunteer for an identity card. Now, I think... I'm almost certain. Anyway, we'll find out. Yeah, but very shortly, if Jackie Smith gets her way, we'll all have to have one, won't we? Which is a nightmare. Well, just the process of going through the whole damn thing is the nightmare. But there you are. But 161 228 2255. I am right. I'm on that. I could be wrong. It's
your Sunday Morning Lion with Mike Shaft.
How is the issue of HIV and AIDS addressed in the U.S.?
For the last 20 years, the American church in particular has been pretty unaware. I think it's something that many of us really regret and feel that we have to repent of.
Mike Shaft.
This is all part of the church's attempt to, shall we say, rebrand what Halloween stands for.
The 1st of November is All Saints' Day, a time when we celebrate the triumph of goodness over evil. And sadly, I think, the thing that we now know as Halloween, we've lost sight of that truth.
Manchester's faith, spirit, and life's difficult questions with Mike Shaft.
Inspiring.
Sunday morning from 7 on BBC Radio Manchester.
Last night I went to dancing. I did. I went to the Lowry, where the Rambert Dance Company are doing their thing. God almighty, aren't kids noisy? Flaming Nora. There's about 1,000 young girls in the audience. It was like being, honestly, it was like being at a Take That concert 20 years ago. Not that I went to a Take That concert 20 years ago. In fact, I don't think Take That existed 20 years ago. Anyway, it was full of young girls. God almighty, don't virgins make a noise? Crying out loud. What a rattle that was. But the dancing was fabulous. And the good thing about dancing is you don't have to bloody well hear it, do you? Crying out loud. It was so noisy. I came away with an headache. But the dancing was superb. There were 3 dances. I have no idea what they were called. I'm not very good at that. But if you like modern ballet, well, yeah, they're not quite, are they? They're not. Like some modern ballet is as butch as they come, and then you've got the Jessie stuff, the girly stuff. Yeah, like your Swan Lake and all that. Well, your Rambert, they're like 50-50, aren't they? They no, not that. Although some of them might be. But they're kind of a mixture of traditional ballet and modern ballet. Yeah. Oh, well, I'm just telling you. And it was brilliant. So if you fancy a bit of it, it's on tonight, it's on tomorrow night, and it's well worth it. It's a dear do. Well, it won't for me, but it generally is a dear do. But fancy it. If you like a bit of dance, it's very good. Very good. And there's one where there's a dirty great big macaw. Now, it's not a real one, it's a dancer with an hat on. But it looks like you know that bird that they use for the Guinness advert? Yeah, Guinness is good for you, and it's got on its beak. Well, they don't use it for the Guinness advert on this, it's dancing. I'm dancing. And she leaps about, well, I think it's a girl, you can't tell, because unless you're up close, you can't tell. You can usually make the blokes out, because they've got it all stacked up so they don't crush it when they're dancing. But the girls, there's not many clues. Because none of them have got bosoms, obviously. All that leaping about all day, you can't tell. Well, they'd fall over. And so, but I think it was a female. And no, I'm not suggesting ballet dancers are hermaphrodite. I wouldn't say that. Anyway, if you get the chance and you fancy a bit of modernish type dancing, then it's fantastic. And it's well worth going. Hi, Alan, says David. Another one. I listen to you each day. I think that I know you in some way. Would it not be fantastic if we the people could hear from the people who want and do rule over us, be it by election or otherwise, expose themselves in the way you do every day? I don't expose myself every day. Good Lord. And if I did, people would say, which way round you go? Even if it were only for a few days, either before or after their election or appointment, they could let us know how they think. Well, yes, they could, but they wouldn't, would they? They wouldn't. They wouldn't be sitting there thinking, oh, I know the truthful answer to this. They'd be thinking, I know what to do. I'll make sure I don't tell them everything. And I've been sent an email address from Pauline, which is citizencard.com. One word, the citizen card, one word, .com. So if you want to have a look at that, Denise, you can see whether I was right about cards. I am right about the fact that I'll be back tomorrow from 6 o'clock and back on Monday from 12 o'clock. Becky's at the airport. See you tomorrow on Monday. Ta-da now.
Meet Interfaith Minister.